Ramanuja Dayapatram Jnanavairagya Bhushanam Srimadvenkatanathaaryam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Lakshminatha Samarambham Nathaya Munamadhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Yo Nityam Achyuta Padambuja Yugmarukma Vyamohata Staritarani Trinayamene Asmadguror Bhagavatosya Dayeka Sindhoho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye Mata Pita Yuvatayastanaya Vibhuti Sarvam Yadeva Niyamena Madanvayanam Adyasya Nah Kulapater Vakulabhiramam Srimat Tadangri Yugalam Pranamami Murdhana Bhutam Sarascha Mahadahvaya Bhattanatha Sri Bhaktisara Kulashekara Yogi Vahan Bhaktangri Renu Parakala Yatindra Mishran Srimat Parankushamunim Pranatosmi Nityam. In Sanatana Dharma, we have a galaxy of bhaktas or bhagavatottamas whom we revere. Beginning with Kashmir till Kanyakumari in the south, from Gujarat till even Cambodia, we have had a galaxy of philosophers, bhaktas, some of them very well known, some of them lesser known, who have added beauty to this philosophical and theological system. Amongst these saint poets who have added glory to Sanatana Dharma, in the Bhakti movement, we have had the Azhwars, the mystic saint poets of Tamil Nadu, in the Tamil tradition, revering the Lord like no one else. Well, there is a beautiful shloka in Srimad Bhagavatam which goes like this. Kritadishu prajarajan kala vichanti sambhavam kalau khalu bhavishyanti narayana parayanaha kvachit kvachin maharaja dravideshu cha bhurishaha Tamraparni Nadiyatra Kritamala Payaswini Kaveri cha Mahapunya Pratichi cha Mahanadi Yepi Banti Jalam Tasam Manuja Manujeshwara Prayo Bhakta Bhagavati Vasudevalam Ameshayaha. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, Shuka Brahman tells Parikshit, in the years to come, that is when Kali Yuga rises, when people are a bit confused, oh well, the atrocities in Kali Yuga has begun, that is when we will have the Azhwars. He gives it like a prophecy. He says, Kaveri cha Mahapunya, on the banks of Kaveri, Payaswini, on the banks of river Payaswini, on the banks of river Tamraparani, on the banks of river Kritamala, and so on, will be born great saint poets. Whom is he referring to? Well, he has mentioned that on the banks of river Payaswini, Paya is milk, Payaswini is that river which has waters akin to that of milk, because probably because of the foam that arose on the top of it, it looked like the river of milk. So in Tamil, this river is called as Palar, and on the banks of river Palar were born the Azhwars, namely Poigai Azhwar, Bhudatta Azhwar, Pei Azhwar, Tirumalizhai Azhwar. Then he refers to the river Kaveri. On the banks of river Kaveri were born Tondaradi Podi Azhwar, Tiruppan Azhwar and Tirumangai Azhwar. Then he refers to the Nadi, the river Kritamala, which is Vaigai in Tamil, which flows by Madurai. So, by the banks of it, at its proximity in Srivilliputturu, were born Periyalvar and Andal. Then he refers to Tamraparani, where on its banks were born Nammalvar and Madhurakavi Alvar. And he refers to a nadi called Mahabhaga. Maha is Periya in Tamil. Bhaga is Aru. Periyaru is the river in Kerala, banks of which was born Kulashekara Alvar. So by referring to Payaswini, Kaveri, Kritamala, Tamraparni and Periyar, which is Mahabhaga, he has mentioned of Poigayalvar, Bhudattalvar, Peyalvar, Tirumalizhayalvar, Nammalvar, Madurakavialvar, Kulashekharalvar, Periyalvar, Andal, Tondaredipudiyalvar, Tiruppanalvar, Tirumangayalvar, and of course the one who gave us Ramanujanutrundari called as Tiruvaranga Tamudanar. So the galaxy of these Azhwars make up a number of 12 plus 1. That plus 1 is because Ramanuja is also treated as an Azhwar. The compendium of the verses sung by all these mystic saint poets in the Tamil tradition is called as Divya Prabandham, Nalayira Divya Prabandham, because it amounts to the number 4000. It is called Nal Ayiram. Nal in Tamil is 4, Ayiram is 1000, Nalayiram is 4000. It is called Nalayira Divya Prabandham. Or there is a beautiful Tamil word called Aruli Cheyal. Coming to the Azhwars, the Guru Parampara Prabhavam states that the Azhwars were born slightly before, during and after Krishnavataram. Some were born just before Krishnavataram, some were born during Krishnavataram, and some were born after Krishnavataram. This is what the Guru Parampara Prabhavam states. So it could extend between the 3500 BCE till about the 8th century CE or AD is what we all understand. So for a period of about 4000 years, in that gap is when all these Azhwars were born, is what the Guru Parampara Prabhavam states. Nevertheless, looking at the style in which the Tamil language has been used, has been deployed, the similes, the metaphors, the places which are being referred, the kings who are being referred, and the counter references, historians opine that the period of the Azhwars could anywhere range between the 5th century AD, which is 5th century CE, and the 8th century CE. In whichever case, there is no dispute about whether the Azhwars existed or not, whether they sang the praises of the Lord in chaste Tamil or not, or whether their verses are available till date or not. There is no dispute on that. It is only about the dates in which they were born, immaterial of whether they were born during Dwapara Yuga or Kali Yuga, or they were born in the first millennium AD. To us, they are devotees of the highest order whom we need to venerate, appreciate. In Tamil, it is said, Potriyuhappadum Pundiyil Kolvadum. Now getting back to the Azhwars, let me take you through the first set of Azhwars called the Mudal Azhwargal. Mudal in Tamil means the first. So the first three Azhwars are called Poigai Azhwar, Bhudattalvar, Peyalvar. Well, they are called Ayonijas. Yoni is the uterus. So we are all born from our mothers. Every animal, every mammal is born that way because of gestation, which the mother undergoes, and finally the child is born. Well, they are called Ayonijas. It means that they were not born of a mother, which is very, very tough for us to understand and accept. Nevertheless, one explanation, very simple explanation given to us is, just because we don't see, we don't realize, it doesn't mean an event or an incident had never happened. So they could have been supernatural beings who were born just like that without the association of that of a mother. Hence they were Ayonijas. The other very logical explanation given is, there are various children who are born on this earth in different geographies to parents, but are abandoned by them for a variety of reasons. The mother could be dead the very instant she gives birth to the child. That is why we have statements that come from fathers who state that just now my wife delivered a baby boy and both the child and the mother are doing well, because many women have sacrificed their lives, or probably they lose, they won't have the stamina and they die. So there are many children who are born while their mothers are dead. There are many children in various scenarios because of poverty, because of destitution, because of family circumstances, where the mother has to abandon the child. So in either case, the child is orphaned at the very birth. Then it is to the karma of the child whether the child falls into the hands of a very nice person, a very generous person, a very kind-hearted person who may want to adopt the child and bring the child as his very own child. So there are very few such great human beings. So until then, do we keep referring to such children as orphan children? No, we would rather say that they are the children of God. So that's the way we venerate orphan children, and do not use the word orphan, rather we say Deiva Kulandai. So Deiva Kulandai means that child which is the child of God. God means somebody who is divine, who is filled with divinity, who has powers that we don't have. So when these Azhwars were probably born as children, probably they were abandoned, and hence they were treated by Acharyas as the very children of God, and then thus they wish to be called as Ayonijas. This is the other explanation. So Poigaya Azhwar, Bhudatta Azhwar, Pei Azhwar, they were born one day after the other. Thiruvonam, Sadayam, Avittam, these were the nakshatras. So they were probably of the same age, just the difference of one day, but they were born in different places. The first Azhwar, Poigaya Azhwar, was born in Kanchipuram. Bhudatta Azhwar was born in Mahabalipuram, which is called as Mamallapuram. And Pei Azhwar was born in Mylapore, which is a locality in the heart of Chennai, which is the capital of Tamil Nadu. So they were born in a triangle, Mahabalipuram, Chennai and Kanchipuram, all three regions that fall under the jurisdiction of the Pallavas, which is called Tondai Nadu or Pallava Nadu. The three Azhwars were not aware of each other, they had never heard of each other. So here is one line which says that they have never heard of each other. Trayaste mithona samparka jushoba bhuvuhu. They had not known of each other. But it did so happen that all three of them wanted to have the darshan, the glimpse of Lord Trivikrama in a kshetram, in a place called as Tirukkovalur or Gopapuri, which is again closer to the town of Viluppuram in Tamil Nadu. I'm talking, say, by going by the date of historians, about 400-500 years back. We can't even imagine. Most nations didn't exist. The landmass would have existed. Did we have the United States of America as a country, or probably various kingdoms ruling 1500 years back? There would have been tribal groups. There would have been very localized native people, but we wouldn't have had a huge civilization, a civilization where there are languages, and where there is literature, and where there is architecture, and where there are art forms, and where there is devotion, where there is singing, where there is dancing. How sophisticated the Oriental civilizations were is a topic that we could research upon. So these three Azhwars wanted to visit the abode of Lord Trivikrama in Gopapuri. So they all left. While the first Azhwar came, he sang praises of the Lord's serpent couch. He said, Sendral Kudayam, Irundal Singasanamam, Nindral Maravadiyam, Neelkadalul Yendrum Punayam, Manivilakkam, Poom Pattam, Pulgumanayam, Tirumalukku Aravu. While describing Adisesha or Ananta, he states, if the Lord wishes to walk, he becomes the umbrella. If the Lord wishes to sit, he curls himself so that he could become, and as he coils himself, he could become the seat of the Lord. And as the Lord wishes to walk, he coils in such a way that the Lord can insert his feet so that he becomes the padukas. If the Lord wishes to sleep, he becomes the couch. And if the Lord wishes to have a pillow, he breathes in air so that he can give a swollen portion as the pillow. And as the snake tries to shed its skin, that skin, the one that's shed, becomes the very blanket to the Lord. And if the devotees wish to have a glimpse of the Lord, the 2,000 shining gem-like eyes of Adisesha become the light. And if the Lord wishes to have some good fanning service done to himself, he looks at Adisesha, and Adisesha brings his tongues out, and as the tongue goes up and down, that becomes the fan. So be it the fan, the light, the pillow, the blanket, the couch, the seat, or the very footwear, Adisesha serves in every possible way to the Lord, thereby indicating to every devotee such as us, what we are doing is very little. Keep serving the Lord. So this message is conveyed by Poigai Alvar. As he finished his darshanam of Trivikrama in the Kshetram, he goes further. And as he goes further, he sees a beautiful abode of the Lord. And then he goes further, taking the blessings of the Lord and the priest. He gets in to a little passage which is called Dehali. Dehali is a little passage. He goes and rests there. He thinks he has become too tired, so let me go and rest. That very night, a few minutes after he had left the sanctum sanctorum of the temple, comes the next Alvar called Bhudat Alvar. Bhudat Alvar comes and he is amazed looking at the Lord's beauty. And then he says, how beautiful is the Lord here. Doesn't he remind me of the lords of various other kshetrams? He says, Manattullan Vengadattan Ma Kadalan. When I look at this Lord, Trivikrama of Tirukkovalur, I am reminded of the Lord of Tirumala, who is nothing but the personification of dark clouds that represents that there is going to be a rainfall in abundance, and here it's going to be the rainfall of mercy. Manattullan Vengadattan Ma Kadalan. Isn't he the one who goes and reclines on the milky ocean? Mattum Ninaipariya Neel Arangattullan. Isn't he the one who goes and reclines in the Kshetram of Srirangam near Tiruchirappalli? Yennai Palarum Devadi Devan Yenappaduvan Munnurunal Mavai Pilanda Madan. Isn't he the one who incarnated as Lord Krishna to establish dharmam, dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So here, Bhudat Alvar celebrated the beauty of the Lord. He goes on further to state, Pagal kandeen Narananai kandeen, Kanavil mihak kandeen, Mindavanai meyye mihak kandeen, Untigalum nemi, Ulitigalum shevadiyan, Vantigalum shodhi vadivu. As this Lord brings about the ability of the Lord to dispel darkness, nescience, and to bring in knowledge, he goes on further to describe the Lord of Kanchipuram. Well, in the year 2019, a lot of you devotees from the Bay Area and elsewhere in the United States would have even flown to India to have a darshanam of an event that occurs once in 40 years. This is the emergence of Atti Varadar, believed to be the original deity, the Moola deity of Kanchipuram, believed to be the deity that is made of the Atti Maram, of the fig tree. In binomial nomenclature, we call it religiosa. And it is this deity that is believed to have come from the sacrificial altar, fire, called Ashwamedham, performed by Brahma. So, to commemorate that event, Atti Varadar was placed for darshanam to devotees world over. World over, people came to Kanchipuram. And this Divyadesham is so very close to the hearts of Vaishnavas that Garuda Seva of Kanchipuram is very popular. Muthuswami Dikshitar, one in the Trinity, states, Kalidosha Haratirtha Prabhava Guru Guhadinatam Kapila Shukadi Sanuta Garuda Vaharudham Varadaraja Mupasmahe. So he says, Varadaraja Mupasmahe, I celebrate Lord Varadaraja, Garuda Vahadi Rudham, the one who comes atop the celestial vehicle called Garuda. Well, that great kshetram called Kanchipuram, which is one amongst the 108 Divyadeshams venerated by the Azhwars, doesn't have even over 2 Azhwars singing it. There is only one Azhwar who sings it. And not in all the 4,000 verses, just in one verse, probably in some of the reality shows. We have the unexpected entry of a candidate in the last episode, right? It's called the trump card entry or something. So similarly, we have just one verse that is being sung on this Lord, and that is attributed to Bhudattalvar, the second of the Mudal Azhvargal. He says, Attiyuran Pullayurvan Animaniyin Tuttisher Nagathin Mel Tuilvan Mutti Marayavan Makadal Nanjundan Tanakkum Irayavan Yengal Piran. Isn't he the one who grants mukti, moksham? The other meaning to Mutti Marayavan, Mutti, Mu is 3, Ti is fire. Mutti is 3 kinds of fire. It is said that a grihastha in Sanatana Dharma upon marriage should perform Agnihotra, the sacrifice through fire, thrice a day. So it's called Treta Agni. So 3 kinds of fire should be invoked by the householder is what Sanatana Dharma ordains. Well, there may not be too many Agnihotris today, but that's how our ancestors were. So Mutti Marayavan, he is the one who is the leader of all the sacrificial fires, is what is being said in this particular verse. Let me now take you to Peyalvar, because Bhudattalvar, after having sung praises of Lord Trivikrama, goes back and he says, he feels, let me take some rest, and he goes to the same Dehali, that same way, Ale, where the first Azhvar, Poigai Azhvar, was resting, he was reclining. The moment Poigai Azhvar sees the incoming Bhudattalvar, he invites him and says, Sir, why don't you sit? There is place for one to sleep. Well, 2 people can sit. Both of us, let us sit. Bhudattalvar said, you're so friendly to me, Poigai Azhvar, let us both sit. And they started discussing about the unique characteristics of the Lord as Paramatma, and in his incarnations such as Matsya Avataram, Kurma Avataram, Varaha Avataram, Rama Avataram and Krishna Avataram. They were having a very, very productive, fruitful and a very spiritual discussion. Meanwhile, the third Azhvar called Peyalvar, he reached the Sanctum Sanctorum of Trivikrama. He had a darshan of the Lord and he sang praises of the Lord's beauty. Kannum Kamalam, Kamalame Kaitalamum, Mannalanda Padamum, Mattavaye Yennin, Karumamugil Vannan, Karkadal Neervannan, Tirumamani Vannan, Tesu. So he remarks at the Lord's beauty where he says every angam of the Lord is comparable to that of lotus. Understanding the beauty of this Lord was the pinnacle of Peyalvar's devotion. Peyalvar goes about to describe in another verse, Tal Shadayum, Neelmudiyum, Onmazhuvum, Chakkaramum, Shoolaravum, Ponnanum Thondrumal, Shoolum, Tirandarivipaayum Thirumalai Mel Yendaikku Iranduruvum Ondrai Isaindu. While describing the Lord of Tirumala Tirupati, he states, On one side I see the radiant crown of the Lord. On the same side I see the golden thread, Ponnan. On that side he says, I see the discus, Chakkaram. Well, on the other side I see the matted locks, Tar Shadai. I see the Maru, the axe. I see Shur Aravu. I see the snake. So on one side is the crown, the discus and the golden thread. The other side is the matted locks, is the snake and the axe. To me, both of them represent or seem as one, he states. There, the commentator, the famed commentator on the entire Nalayara Divya Prabandham called as Periyavachan Pillai remarks 800-900 years back. He says, this describes the Sharira Shariri Bhavam. Like I have my body, the Pancha Bhautika Shariram, the 5 element based material body, and in this gross body is housed the Jivatma, the sentient matter. And this Jivatma shall always command through the mind to the body that raise your hand, Dushyanth, bring it down. So as it goes up, the mind says, so the body acts and then comes down. So the one that controls from the within through various other senses is the Jivatma. So Jivatma is the Shariri, that which is inside the Shariram is Shariri. So Narayana, who is the Paramatma, is the ultimate. So Lord Shiva, Vaishnavanam Aham Shambhuhu, while describing Lord Shiva's beauty, Nayanmar says, Kunitta Puruvamum Kovvai Sevvayit Kumitchirippum Panitta Sadayum Pavalam Pol Meniyit Pal Venneerum Inittamudaya Edutta Purpadamum Kanapetral Manitta Piraviyum Venduvade Immanilatte. How beautiful is Lord Shiva when he dances. The waters of Ganga also dance with him. So does Goddess Parvati, who has taken half his body, also dance with him. So that Lord Shiva becomes the typical example for a person, a devotee who aspires and meditates upon Paramatma. So a person who performs penance or austerities is always in matted locks, and as he engages in rigorous penance, the snakes go around him, and he always has a maru, the axe, as a weapon to protect himself. So this aspiring devotee who is in the state of austerities or penance with matted locks, with the axe, with snakes around him, aspires to have Lord Vishnu as his Antaratma, who has got the radiant crown, who has got the discus to protect his devotees, and the Ponnan, which is the golden thread, the indication of the zenith of knowledge that he has attained and also helps the devotees of his attain. So this is the essence of this particular Pasuram. Now, Peyalvar, after the darshanam of Trivikrama, goes to the same causeway, the same ale, the same Dehali. There, initially, Poigayalvar was reclining. He made space for Bhudattalvar, where both of them sat. The moment the both of them saw another Vaishnava called Peyalvar coming, they said, Peyalvar, you may join us. It is raining outside. So you may join us. All three of us can stand together. There is space for all three of us to stand together. They all stood. Suddenly, as they were discussing about the essential characteristics of the Lord, they were surprised that they felt that a force was trying to squeeze itself with the three of them. The first Alvar said, I am quite surprised. Who could this be? Because when a Vaishnava, a devotee, meets another Vaishnava, which is the essence of Namasankeerthanam movement, you are all great devotees and followers of Gnanananda Swami, Haridas Giri. So many devotees were born in Bharatadesham. Of course, there are many devotees in the other countries as well. So they all propagated Namasankirtan. Why is Namasankirtanam important? Well, remember, Namasankeerthanam alone is not important. We should learn Vedam, we should learn Prabandham, we should learn Shlokas. But not at every instance will a person have the capability, the finesse in him or her to learn tough shlokas. In that case, that act which rescued Gajendra, that act which rescued Draupadi in the middle of the Sabha was to perform Sharanagati and to take the name of the Lord. In the Tamil language, one Acharya says, Avattile Pudavai Surandadu Tirunamamire. It is the Nama that protected her. So that Nama, taking the name of the Lord, which is very, very contrary to the thoughts of the Western religions. For example, in Judaism, the 10 commandments which Moses received, in that one of the commandments says, do not take the name of the Lord in vain. Unnecessarily do not take the name of the Lord. Whereas it's just the opposite in Sanatana Dharma, whether you sit, stand, keep thinking of the Lord and take the name of His. So why should I trouble Him unnecessarily? No, you are always in His thoughts when you take His name. That is why, if you remember, probably students, my dear friends of this generation may not know, but elderly people will know. But when elderly people have to rise from their seat and age is kind of tormenting them with bodily pain, while they rise from their seat or while they have to sit, they will always take the name of the Lord. Rama, Krishna, Govinda. Govinda, 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 Guru Vairappa. That's how they'll get up and sit. So, coming to the essence of Namasankirtanam, it says that you take the name of the Lord with utmost devotion from whichever place you are. Whether you are in San Jose, Cupertino, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle, whichever place you are. It doesn't mean Lord has created only Bharata Desham. He has created the entire universe. Whatever you see around is His creation. So there is nothing like one country belongs to Him, the other country doesn't. So in whichever geography you are, you take the name of the Lord. So when a Vaishnava respects Namasankirtanam, here is one shloka which goes, Vaishnavo Vaishnavam Drishtva Dandavat Pranamed Bhuvi Tayor Madhyagato Vishnuhu Shankachakra Gadadaraha. If one devotee sees the other, they fall at each other's feet, respecting each other. And to see this drishyam, Vishnu with his weapons will come and stand there so that he also partakes the beauty of seeing a Vaishnava meeting another Vaishnava. Tulasi Kananam Yatra Yatra Padmavanani cha Vasanti Vaishnava Yatra Tatta Sannihito Harihi. The first Azhwar, Poigai Azhwar says, well, let me light a lamp and check where the Lord is. He says, Vayyam Tagaliya, Vargadale Neyyaga, Vayyakadiron Velakkaga, Seyyachudar Ariyan Adikke, Shuttineen, Sol Malai, Idar Ari Ningugave Yendru. So, as this Azhwar lights the lamp of knowledge, the second Azhwar, whose Bhudat Azhwar states, even I shall light a lamp. Poigai Azhwar, you have lit a lamp to see who is that who's kind of squeezing himself or herself between us, the three of us. I will light a lamp. Anbe Tagaliya, Arvame Neyyaga, Inburugu Sindai Idudiriya, Nanburugu Jnanachudar Vilakkettrineen, Naranarku Jnanattamil Purinda Nan. I am singing in Chase Tamil, Bhakti Tamil. Let me see who this is. So he also tried lighting the lamp through knowledge. The third Azhwar said, I will not light the lamp. Pei Azhwar said, I will not light the lamp because both of you have lit and I can see who is clearly trying to squeeze. With the three of us here, somebody is trying to squeeze in, right? I can see who that is. The first two Azhwars are asked, who is it? See, I can see Mahalakshmi here. If Mahalakshmi is here, then it must be Lord Sriman Narayana, because without Mahalakshmi, he will never come out. Tirukkandeen, Ponmeni Kandeen, Tigalum Arukkan Ani Niramum Kandeen, Sharit Kilarum Punnari Kandeen, Purisangam Kaikandeen, Yennari Vannan Pal Yindru. En Ari Vannan, to that Lord of mine, I am singing such praises, he says. So, as the three Azhwars lit the lamp and they wanted to see, it was none but the Lord who wanted to be amidst them. So, be it Poigayalvar, Bhudattalvar or Peyalvar, the life history of theirs is very, very succinct and simple. But the devotion that they showed to the Lord is worth remembering and is very, very deep. These three Azhwars sang a set of 100 pasurams each in the format where the last word of their verse will be the first word of the next subsequent verse. It's called Andadi, like how we all pray Antakshari. It's called Andadi. The first set of 100 verses by Poigayalvar was called Mudal Tiruvandadi. The second set of 100 verses by Bhudattalvar is called Irandam Tiruvandadi. The third set of 100 verses sung by Peyalvar is called Moondram Tiruvandadi. So the three Azhwars called Mudal Azhwargal gave the first three prabandhams called Mudal, Irandam, Moondram Tiruvandadi of 100 pasurams each. Prithivya tayordhvam chotpapatasa Mahisara kshetratula bharavasta bhabhuvasa kshetrasyasya tada dhata namadheyam dadau swayam Mahisara kshetramiti tenanvartham chaturmukhaha. A group of rishis, the list is given in the Guru Parampara Prabhavam, Atri, Vasishta, Bhrigu, Bhargava, Pulastya, Angiras, asked Brahma, we all wish to contemplate, meditate upon the Lord. Please mention of a kshetram, which is the best. To which Brahma is said to have said, Mahisara kshetram in Sanskritam. In Tamil it is called Tirumalizai. Please go to this locality. This is currently in the outskirts of Chennai now. Please go to this place, just geography, and meditate on the Lord. And the rishis came. And they had a very, very satisfying, fully satisfying experience of the Lord by meditating upon Him. And while they all left, Bhargava Rishi stayed back. And he was reciting the Dwadashakshari, which is the Vasudeva Mahamantram. Later, Tirumalizai himself invokes the Dwadashakshari. He says, Moondru muppattarinodu or aindumai moondru murti agi moondru tondru jodi moondru maya tulakkam il velakkamai ennendra aviyul puhundu engolo yamísane. So in this pasuram he describes the way one derives the 12 syllabled Dwadashakshara Mahamantram, Vasudeva Mahamantram. Then Bhargava Maharishi meditated upon the Lord, and as a result of it, Indra was very, very much perturbed. He thought that if this Bhargava Maharishi is led to performing the penance, then it will become very disgraceful upon us. So he sends an Apsarastri. And this Apsarastri comes down and she tries to distract the attention of Bhargava Maharishi. And as a result of which, there is a child born eventually in the months. And this child, which is orphaned by both the mother and the father, is brought up by a hunter couple. And this hunter couple tries to give every possible love that parents can give to their child. And understanding this child's greatness in always staying quiet and meditating upon the Lord, another couple invoke the blessings of this child and consume the milk left by the child, as a result of which, by the divine grace, they too have a son called as Kanikannan. And this child of the hunter couple, he grows on to be a very, very philosophically mature person. And this child is treated in the traditional Vaishnava Sampradayam as the incarnation of Vishnu's Sudarshana Chakram. Azhwar himself indicates, Kadiron Marayai Azhiyal Maraittaral Azhiyar Azhiyan Pal Azhipadai Tottu Chakkarapani Allaye. So this child who is the incarnation of Chakram, though he did not have any formal education into the Vedic system, became a staunch propagator of the ideals of Sanatana Dharma. So much so that he becomes the Acharya for Peyalvar later. The last of the three Mudal Alvars. That Peyalvar's Acharya is Tirumalizhai Alvar. Though there is no indication in their Pasurams, he becomes the one who brings clarity to the mind of Peyalvar. Now this Peyalvar is the one who has inculcated Paradevata Paramarthyam, that is the ultimate source of meditation, object of meditation, who is Lord Sriman Narayana. So, this Tirumalizhai Alvar, from his very boyhood, developed an interest to the Itihasas and the Puranas, and subsequently started singing Tamil Pasurams. These Tamil Pasurams were compiled by him in two different works. One was called Nanmugan Tiruvandadi and the other one was Tiruchanda Viruttam. This Tiruchanda Viruttam Prabandham and the Pasuram is what I spoke initially. Moondru Muppatari Nodu. Well, he describes Nanmugan Tiruvandadi. It's called Nanmugan Tiruvandadi because it begins with the word Nanmugan. It talks about Brahma being created by Rudra, Rudra who is created by Narayana. And who is Rudra? He describes in various places as the one who sports the crescent moon on his matted locks. The one who has got the virulent poison bearing snake around his throat. The one who has consumed a halahala visham for the welfare of the mankind and is called Neelakantha. He says, Nanmuganai Narayanan Padaittan, Nanmuganum Tanmugamai Shankaranaittan, Ishanaittan, Arushadai Karandanaittan, Varshadayanaittan, Katrai Shadayanaittan, Tunnu Shenshadayanaittan, தீக்கொண்ட செம்சடையானைத்தான் திங்கள் சடை ஏற வைத்தானைத்தான் கீறு திங்கள் வைத்தானைத்தான் நீள்முடியானைத்தான் ஒன்றிரண்டு கண்ணினானைத்தான் கண்மூன்றத்தானைத்தான் கரை கண்ட கண்டத்தானைத்தான் உவரிக்கடல் நஞ்சமுண்டானைத்தான் நீரு ஆடினானைத்தான் மாது தங்கு கூற்றானைத்தான் படைத்தான். Says Tirumalizhai Alvar while describing the chronology in Srishtikramam. He was vociferous against the thoughts, the tenets of Buddhism and Jainism. He had nothing against Gautama Buddha or Mahavira. His opposition was against the ideology of Buddhism and Jainism. He mentions this. Ariyar Shamanar, Ayartar Pautar, Siriyar Shivapattar Seppil, Veriyaya Mayavanai, Malavanai, Madavanai, Yettadar Yinavare Adalal Yindru, he says. As Tirumalizhai Alvar was extremely devoted to the Lord, the society was not very just to him. It is said that once, while he was walking by the streets of Perumpuliyur, a village, he noticed a few young students learning the verses of Krishna Yajurveda from their Acharya. As they were learning, the teacher who was teaching them the Vedic aphorisms thought it was right for him to stop teaching, because a person belonging to another community who is the Alvar was walking by, and this teacher did not want the Vedic aphorisms or the statements to be heard by Alvar. As he stopped the class and let the Alvar pass by that street, a few steps after the Alvar had passed that particular house, the teacher wished to continue the recitation of the Vedic passage. But the beauty was, he did not know where he had left the passage. There should be a bookmarker like place, right? He should have marked that place. The beauty was, even the young students did not know where the teacher had left. That is when a very unique act was performed by Tirumalizhai Alvar. He took a mace, black in color, took that in his hand, used his nails and tore that like a dicotyledon, like how Nrisimha would tear Hiranyakashipu, or like how we would break the seeds of a dicotyledon. The moment this was broken, this was torn open, the teacher who was teaching could get clue from what Azhwar had done and remembered where he had left, because the place where he had left was Nairitam Charum Parivritye Grihye Krishnanam Vrihinam Nakha Nirbhinnam. Krishnanam, dark, Vrihinam, that means Nakha Nirbhinnam, that means that is taken into two pieces with the help of nails, is what that particular Vedic statement says. And that is the place where the teacher had left the class halfway. And that is the place with just an indication Azhwar said, this is the place where you had left. Understanding the depth of knowledge what Azhwar had, the teacher came running and fell at his feet. Besides this, there is a very interesting incident. Tirumalizhai Azhwar, he had a small hermitage, and in that hermitage, assisting him day in and day out, was his Antaranga Sishya called as Kanikannan. There used to be an old lady who used to come to this hermitage every day, and she used to sprinkle water on the floor, clean it up, make beautiful rangoli designs as a mark of auspiciousness, and would leave. She was a very old lady, the city knew of her. It is said one day, the Azhwar, who opened his eyes after deep meditation, looked at her like how Muchukunda looked at Kalayavana. His benign grace fell on her, and she turned into a 16-year-old teenager, a very, very smart, beautiful girl who could participate in any of the world pageant title events like Miss World, Miss Universe. She was very pretty. She received the grace of the Azhwar and she walked by the streets. At that point in time, the king of that particular region, the Pallava king, saw this beautiful woman and asked, "I've never seen you before. Who are you, oh you young lady?" This lady laughs and says, "See, I was never young. I'm made young." "What do you mean by made young?" "I was old. This particular Tirumalizhai Azhwar looked at me and I've turned young." The king, he was amazed at Azhwar's prowess. He thought he should make use of the Azhwar's prowess in making him young so that he could enjoy, he could have his own sensual pleasures. He called up the student of Tirumalizhai Azhwar called as Kanikannan and said, "Kanikanna, please ask your guru, your acharya, to look at me so that even I turn young." Kanikannan said, "See, that was not an intentional incident at all. He looked and she turned young. And here my acharya is there to meditate upon the Lord, and he is not here to go on a mission to make all the old people young." So that very moment the king got angry because he has never heard people answering him back. He said, "If you're not interested to inform your guru, if your guru is not interested, I command you that you have to get out of my Pallava country." Kanikannan said, "Okay, fine. If that's the commandment of the king, I shall follow. I shall go seek the permission of my acharya and leave." By then, his acharya Tirumalizhai Piran or Azhwar was worshipping the Moolamurti of Tiruvekka Yathoktakari. He's called Vega Setu. Earlier name was Vega Setu because he became the bridge to the flowing waters of Saraswati called Vegavati. So he is called Vega Setu, the one who became the bridge on Vegavati Nadi. So while his acharya Tirumalizhai Azhwar was meditating upon the Lord of Tiruvekka, Kanikannan went and informed, "My dear acharya, I was asked by the king to convey to you that you have to make him young, but I informed, even without seeking your permission, that my acharya is not here to make old people young. He is into Sakshatkaram and Paramatma Sakshatkaram. But he has commanded me to go out of the kingdom. I shall do so. But I wanted to inform you." Kanikannan mentioned this and he left. Azhwar thought for some time. He said, "If my student is not allowed to stay, then what will I do? How can I call myself an Acharya when there is no student? I shall follow my student. And as Tirumazhi Alvar was about to leave the sanctum sanctorum, he looked back at the Lord, and the Lord's face seemed to suggest that, hey Alvar, Tirumazhi Alvar, trusting in you, I had come to this temple, but now you are leaving me. Please call me as well, is what the Lord could have indicated to Tirumazhi Alvar. You know what Tirumazhi Alvar said? He mentioned these lines. Kanikannan pohindran, Kamarum punkachi manivanna ni kidakka venda. My student Kanikannan has left. Even I am going to leave. Oh, you lotus-eyed Lord, you don't stay here. Tunivudaya shenna pulavanum shelgindren. Niyum undran painahapaye shuruttikkol. You have a beautiful serpent couch, my Lord. You roll it up. You roll it up like a mat. Hold it in under your arm and come along with me. Ni undan painahapaye shuruttikkol. It is said that that entire Kshetram lost its sheen. The entire Pallava country became so very, very, very weak. And Alvar went to the outskirts of Kanchipuram and stayed one night along with his student Kanikannan, and the divine grace, the Lord Vegasetu also stayed with him. So entire Kanchipuram was doomed. That is when the priests got together and they advised the king to go seek remorse and apologize to the Alvar. The king did so. The next morning, Alvar said, okay, now that the king is asking, I cannot deny, I will go back to Kanchipuram. As he was leaving Kanchipuram, to go to Kanchipuram, his student Kanikannan also came. That is when the Lord said, see, you asked me to come here, I have come. Now you both leaving me alone. That is when the Alvar said, see, Kanikannan is going back to Kanchipuram. If Kanikannan is going, even I am going. And if I am going, you can also follow me. What do I do with the serpent couch? You have asked me to roll it like a mat. You go and expand it further. You unroll it so that you can rest on it. Kanikannan pokkolindan kamarum pookachi manivanna ni kidakka vendum. Tunivudaya shenna pulavanum shellavolinden. Niyum undran painahapaye paduttukkol. Why don't you go and recline, take rest on that serpent couch? Is when the Lord came back. So this act of where the Alvar commands the Lord to come, where he commands the Lord to go back, can happen in Sanatana Dharma because the devotee at times has more power than the Lord. Aham bhakta paradhinaha, says Krishna in Bhagavatam. He says, I am subservient to my devotees. People think that devotees are subservient to me. It is wrong. I am subservient to my devotees. So since the Lord is said to have performed what was told to him, he is called Sonna Vannam Seida Perumal. In Sanskritam, he is called Yatha Uktakari, Yathoktakari. Vedanta Deshika mentions this in a beautiful verse. Paripushyati Mangalani Pumsam Bhagavan Bhakti Matam Yathoktakari Pratyadishanti Bhavasaccharanam Prajanam Bhaktanu Ganturiha Yasya Gatagatani Bhaktanu Ganturiha. If Bhaktas say come, he comes. If they say go, he goes. So the one who follows the words of his Bhaktas is Yathoktakari. So this Alvar is said to have had so much of devotion to the Lord. In one particular verse, he describes the concept of Dakshinamurti, the form of Lord Shiva who grants knowledge. ஆல நிழற்கீழ் அறநெறியை நால்வர்க்கு மேலையுகத்தான் உரைத்தான் மெய்தவத்தோ ஞானமளந்தானை ஆழிகிடந்தானை ஆல்மேல் வளர்ந்தானைத்தான் வணங்குமாறு. Lord Shiva with one leg closed, one leg extended, he sits at Dakshinamurti with 4 rishis at his feet. What is he doing? Asks the Alvar. He explains the concept of Paramatma and how everyone should meditate upon Narayana is what Dakshinamurti explains. Dakshinyaramya Girishasya Murti, he says Vedanta Deshika. So while this being said on one side, there is a beautiful verse which Alvar attributes to the Lord of Srirangam. He says, கொண்டை கொண்ட கோதை மீது தேன் உலாவு கூனி கூன் உண்டை கொண்ட ரங்க ஒட்டி உள்மகிழ்ந்த நாதனூர் நண்டை உண்டு நாரை பேர வாழை பாய நீலமே அண்டை கொண்டு கெண்டை மேயும் அந்த நீர் அரங்கமே. We have tongue twisters in every language, don't we? she sells seashells on the seashore. So there is a sa, there is a sh. She sells seashells on the seashore. So there is a sh, sha, sa, sha. Again, haven't we done these exercises of Betty bought some butter, the butter which Betty bought was bitter, so she put some bitter butter into the bitter butter to make the bitter butter better. How much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck would chuck wood? Many things happen in every language. Let's take Hindi. खिड़कियों के खड़कने से खड़कता है खड़क सिंह. So these are all tongue twisters, right? So in Tamil, the Azhwar comes with a beautiful tongue twister. Kondai konda kodai meedu ten ulavu kooni koon, undai konda ranga otti ulmagilda nadanur, nandai undu narai pera valai paya niyame, andai kondu kendai meyum andanir arangame. So he says, while the Lord incarnated as Rama, he would take mud balls, attach them to the arrows and hit on the hunchback of Manthara, who's called Kuni in the Tamil tradition. And as those small mud balls would tickle the hunch, she would get tickled and she would come straight. So the hunch would go in. And after it falls down, that particular mud ball falls down, again she will bend and give that hunch. The Lord would frequently do this and enjoy. Kondai konda kodai meedu ten ulavu kuni kun. Similarly, the Azhwar takes us through the latter half of this verse and says that there is a fish that keeps running here and there. That is like the Baddhatma, because we are all mad after sensual pleasures, right? I'm wearing a chain, I'm wearing a nice kurta, I'm running behind all this, just like how the fish is going in search. Whereas there is another fish, he tells, which rests under the shade of a blue lotus. It does not be so tense and it isn't as active as the other fishes because it knows it has surrendered to the Lord. Like how it has taken refuge under the blue lotus, even the Jivatma that takes refuge under the blue-hued Lord doesn't have to worry much. So the concept of Sharanagati is also something Tirumalizhai Azhwar professes and proposes in this particular Prabandham.